Hello guys, so what you're looking at right over here is a skating tool. It's made by Bronson Speed Company. The reason I got this tool is because I have just recently bought my first skateboard, and with the skateboard I didn't buy any tool with it, so I was using my my standard tools for it, and it's really cumbersome. As you can see, like it needs a lot of space to be able to work with the skateboard. And I know everybody should actually, when they buy skateboard, they should get a skating tool, because this little piece of tool, it includes everything that you need to service your skateboard. And the reason I chose this one is because I've actually found that this is the only tool that costs less than $12, and it's made of full metal. It's like a full metal casting, so the entire thing is made of metal. So I just took it out of the plastic bag, and let's take a look at the tool itself. It's, as I said before, it's made of entirely metal, not like some of other tools in this price range, which only had a small metal part mounted onto the plastic body. So another thing that they claim is that it doesn't damage the bearings when you actually try to service your skateboard. It is being advertised as having a patented design on the back of the socket. Apparently that would prevent you from damaging the bearings, and that's what they said. So I don't know if it's true or not, but we're gonna give it a test run. And of course, over here is your separate tool to be put on the other side of the hardware to actually to disassemble the trucks. Okay, and it's removable. And let's see. And they simply put a plastic piece in here to just be able to hold this in place when you finish using it, which is pretty nice. And it's very tight, so I don't think it's that easy to get lost for the little tool over here, but it's really a nice design and very compact, so you can definitely put it in your pocket, or in your backpack, and then just carry it around. Okay, so I'm gonna test it out and see if it's gonna do anything to the bearing or not. And the reason is I also bought some spacers, just regular bearing spacers. I think it's standard 8mm by 10mm spacer. When I built the skateboard, I did not know about the spacers, which I think most people would highly recommend, because it actually increases the bearing life, and it will prevent you again from over tightening the bolts over here for the axle. If you over tighten it, the wheel doesn't spin, but if you actually don't tighten it good enough, the wheels actually also wobbles around. So it is really in your best interest to just get a spacer and then tighten the bolts all the way to the spacer. And I think that would give you the best tolerance in terms of the wheel installment. Okay, so let's see. Make sure it's the right tool. So interestingly, let me just try to tighten this. And of course, if you over tighten things, it still is gonna make your wheel like really tight, because the bolt still goes in all the way. So I don't really understand what they meant by not damaging your bearings. If you over tighten this bolt with this tool, it's still gonna damage the bearing, like if you over tighten it really hard. So about their claim of not damaging your bearing, I don't think it is the case. You might still damage your bearing in that regard. And interestingly, the socket that holds the nut, it's actually not deep enough. Like if I put it here, so the socket actually stops somewhere right here, so it does not go deep enough. I don't know if it's an advantage or not, but when I actually just trying to untighten the The nut, it just felt like it's a little shallow. I kind of wish like it's deeper, like just my regular tool, which actually goes all the way in. See? So it goes all the way in, and this way actually it makes tightening things a lot easier. Anyway, so I got one of the wheels uninstalled, and I'm actually gonna pull the bearings out and then put the spacers onto the thing. And I think I just lost one of the spacers on the bolt, which is not good. Right here. Yeah, don't ever lose those little spacers, otherwise the wheel is not gonna feel right. Okay, so another spacer is right over here. I'm not gonna remove it, I'm just gonna leave it there. And to pull out the bearings, I use a Bones bearing tool right over here, and it's really easy to use, and it's really convenient. So basically just put this tool right onto the bearing, press it, and it goes in and locks into place, and then you just pull it out, and like it's so effortless, so much easy to use, and you wouldn't damage your bearing anyway. Like this is a very safe way to remove your bearings. Okay, so and then you press it again to release the tool from the bearing, and then just leave your bearing on the side. So I think with one bearing out, it's enough for me to actually just put a spacer in, and that's what I'm gonna do on this wheel. And this is Bones bearing spacers. I think it's made of aluminum. Yeah, it is made of aluminum, so it's pretty light. And that's what it looks like when it's actually inside there. So it would also kind of just fits right over here very nicely. In this instance, I'm just gonna put it in here and see if I'm able to tighten the bolt and not lock the wheels on the axle. So okay, that's what I'm gonna do. Looks like I pulled the wrong bearing. I put the outside bearing, but okay, it doesn't really matter. So now I'm gonna install the bearing back. And to install the bearing, you can simply just push it in there, and it's in place. And of course, the spacer gets installed in there, and I can feel there's a very slight play inside. So let's put it on the wheel and see if it actually works. All right, I'm gonna put the last spacer back on there, and then I'm gonna tighten the bolt, like all the way. So again, I'm gonna use this little tool. I mean, it is pretty compact, but in terms of ease of use, I think I would still prefer my traditional tool, a socket wrench. Okay, so the socket wrench, it just works so much faster. See how fast it is. And if I use this, it becomes a lot slower because I have to hand turn each turn after I tighten it. But now I already had the bolt pretty tight on there, and there's a spacer installed. So with the spacer, really it works pretty nicely, because as you can see, the wheel still spins very freely, and there is no free play like over here, like my other wheels. If you can hear it, there's a rattle over here, because it's really hard for me to get the precise gap in between the wheels to get rid of that little free play. But it looks like the spacer actually helps quite a lot. So in that regard, I'm going to use this tool, just quickly unscrew this wheel, and we're going to pull one of the bearing out, the spacer, don't lose it, and then there we go. So effortless, like that. And I'm going to put one spacer in, and then we're going to put the bearing back on there. So I can also like use the other side of the bearing tool, just push it in here kinda, and to just, you know, set it over there really nicely. Okay, so I'm gonna put everything back on, and then we're gonna tighten this side with the Bronson Speed tool. So spacer back on. And I'm gonna put it on here kind of nicely, and then use my tool to quickly tighten. Well, I was using the wrong side. That's funny. So I tightened my my nut all the way, and it seems like I still have space. I still have gap for the wheel to actually spin freely. Really, really nice. So I kind of figured what they meant by not damaging your bearings, because when you actually put the correct size over there, the whole rim of the tool is actually sitting on the exterior of the bearing, which have a large surface area. So if I'm using my own tool like a socket wrench, this thing actually, when you push it in, it actually sits right on the plastic cover that's protecting the bearing over here. So as you can see, so if you do this quite a lot, you might actually damage the protective cover on the bearing. And I think what the Bronson Speed company meant is that their tool had a larger rim area. So when you put it here, it actually sits on the exterior, the metal area of the bearing, instead of the plastic cover. So that way, it's never going to touch the plastic cover. So it's not going to damage the plastic cover. And in the long run, nothing, like less dirt would get into your bearings. So I think that's what they meant by that special, you know, design that prevents bearing damage. And I have to say, after tightening this bolt, I just realized that, and it is actually a really good design. So kudos to them for thinking about that. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and install my spacer on the rest of the wheels, and then show you guys how well this tool works. And by now I'm kind of used to the tool a little bit now, so I don't feel like it's that hard to use compared to my socket wrench. So yeah, and again I'm gonna use my bearing tool to just pull one bearing out. And as you can see, like with those simple tools, it's so much easier to actually service everything, and you should be able to keep your skateboard in top condition with just some very simple basic tools, and of course the washer inside here. Okay, so with this side down, I'm gonna put the bearing back in. I'm just gonna push it in with the bearing tool and hand push all the way to the end. I'm gonna put the thing back. Make sure your spacer is correctly installed. I always have to remind you guys, don't lose this spacer. And if your skateboard doesn't come with a spacer, you need to get a spacer for it. Okay. All right, so let's use this tool again and tighten the bolt. And also, because of the design of the thing in there, it doesn't go all the way in. So in that regard, it kind of also prevents the damage to the bearing. But most part that the thing prevents is actually the plastic cover on the bearing. It prevents that to get damaged. But if you don't have a spacer, you might still damage your bearing by over tightening your wheels. Okay, so over here with the spacer, you know, it doesn't matter how tight I do, I'm still able to tighten it, you know, all the way in, instead of having to worry about that little free play in there. So it's always gonna be having a perfect free play. And it looks like this bearing needs a little clean, so we're gonna clean that in a little bit. Okay. All right, so this is the last side that needs service. I'm just gonna turn it and take it out. So by the fourth nut, I'm already very familiar and getting used to the tool. So it's really, really fast to service and use. And so far I have no complaint, okay? Super easy to use. And let's put the last spacer in here. and then put the bearing back in, and then just push it back in there, like so. And then I'm going to put it on the wheel, put on the axle. Then of course, let's find that little spacer. Put the spacer in. And then we're going to put the nut in there. Okay. Again, use the correct side and just tighten it. Again, it's really nice to have the spacer because I don't have to worry about over tightening. Like so. So all the wheels are serviced, and of course the other side of the thing is used to adjust the free play on the, I don't know how to, on the bushings. Okay, so it works pretty nice. I mean, it's really easy to adjust, but I'm not gonna adjust it because I had my bushing adjusted to my liking at this moment. And of course the last thing is on this side where you can just uninstall your truck fairly easily. So I'm actually going to go ahead and just do a quick uninstall of the truck because I want to switch the two of the screws, because I actually prefer the screw to be installed horizontally instead of vertically for the indication of the front or the back of the skateboard. Okay. So again, using the same tool, as you can see, it's so much easier to just have one tool that does everything. And of course, it looks like I have to secure the other side. And this is a hex head, so use my little hex head to secure it over there. All right, and just quickly unscrew. Like so. Right here. So again, do another one. And I like the fact that this little T handle is long enough. It just got stuck in there. So I like the fact that this handle is long enough. So if you're getting one of those two that's like kind of a Y shape, the handle might be not long enough and it might get into the way of the trucks. So that's why I prefer this kind of a T-shaped handle instead of a Y-shaped handle. And that's really nice. Take this out. Two more to go on here. So it looks like those bolts have a tendency to get stuck in there, so just use one of your bolts on the other side to just get it out. Okay. Now one of the truck is coming off. Or you could simply just at the very end hand unscrew the truck, the bolt, so it doesn't get stuck in there. So the bolt is off, and that's quite nice. So this is a little shock reducing spacer that's being installed, and as you can see, it's already being pressed into the shape of the truck head, which was an independent truck. Okay, so there you have it. As you can see, with this one tool, I already did a whole bunch of maintenance on my skateboard. And of course, the rest I'm gonna do outside of this video so I don't waste you guys' times. But this little Bronson Speed Company tool, skate tool, is definitely good to have. And if you guys have any questions about any of the tools I've used in this video, feel free to ask me in the comment section, and I'd be happy to answer for you guys. Okay, so thank you so much for watching, and skate safe and have fun out there. Take care.